The Pacific theater of World War II was a brutal proving ground, where every weapon, every bullet, and every heartbeat meant the difference between life and death. The clash between the United States and the Japanese Empire was not merely a contest of nations, but a violent collision of military doctrine, technology, and battlefield innovation. As jungle warfare intensified in places like Guadalcanal, New Guinea, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa, one American weapon began to strike fear into the heart of the Japanese army. A machine gun that could unleash relentless firepower for minutes without pause. This weapon was the Browning M1919. The Japanese soldiers had never seen anything like it. Their standard heavy machine gun, the Type 92, looked fierce and intimidating with its giant tripod and oversized barrel. It was nicknamed the Woodpecker because of its slow, rhythmic firing sound. But when confronted by the M1919, Japanese troops quickly realized their arsenal was completely outclassed. To understand how this shock unfolded, we must go back to the roots of the M1919. Born from the legendary designs of John Moses Browning, it evolved from the earlier water-cooled Browning machine guns used in World War I. Engineers sought to create a more portable, air-cooled variant that infantry units could carry deeper into the fight. The result was a rugged, efficient, and deadly firearm that could fire .30-06 Springfield ammunition at a blistering rate of up to 600 rounds per minute. American Marines and soldiers quickly learned that this gun had one defining purpose: complete fire superiority. It could dominate wide fields of fire, cut through jungle ambushes, halt charging infantry, and rain burning metal onto enemy fortifications. When the first battles between American and Japanese ground forces erupted in the Pacific, the difference in machine gun philosophy became painfully clear. The Japanese military had built their Type 92 not for rapid assault fire, but for slow, accurate suppression from static positions. It fired at only about 450 rounds per minute, when conditions were ideal, and conditions were rarely ideal in the Pacific. Sand jammed its internals. Humidity caused rust and overheating. Its ammunition, the 7.7mm round, lacked the penetrating power needed to break through cover. And worst of all, it was heavy, extremely heavy. Weighing nearly twice as much as the M1919, the Type 92 chained Japanese machine gun crews to fixed defense points. Once positioned, it was difficult to move. When American flanking attacks came, when mobility mattered most, the Type 92 was too slow to reposition and too slow to fire. Meanwhile, the M1919 was light enough to travel with advancing infantry. Its teams could sprint, dive, and relocate as the battle shifted, keeping the fire advantage always in the hands of American troops. On Guadalcanal, the Japanese soldiers expected to overrun inexperienced U.S. Marines quickly. Instead, they encountered the furious thunder of M1919 belts tearing through the dark jungle. Marines laid down a curtain of fire so thick that Japanese troops could barely lift their heads. Assault waves collapsed under automatic fire before they could even reach American positions. As word spread among the ranks of the Imperial Army, one weapon became the center of whispers and fear: the Browning. Every night raid failed. Every charging attack was answered with an endless storm of lead. The psychological impact was devastating. The M1919 didn't just outperform the Type 92, it humiliated it. While Japanese machine gun teams struggled to swap out their strip-type ammo, Americans could feed long belts without pause. While the Type 92 overheated in tropical climates, the M1919 kept firing. While Japanese troops feared giving away their positions, American machine gun nests became immovable anchors of defense. By the time battles escalated in Tarawa and Saipan, Japanese commanders knew their heavy weapons were outdated. But there was no turning back. Production changes were too slow. The Type 92 stayed in service despite its crippling flaws. On the beaches of Iwo Jima, Japanese infantry attempted to charge American lines again and again. But the M1919's rapid-fire dominance shredded their formations. It forced Japanese troops to crawl underground into tunnels and caves, abandoning open-ground warfare altogether. Even elite Japanese units realized that their strategy, built on courage, bayonet charges, and night assaults, could not survive against a weapon that punished every step with bullets. The Browning M1919 became a symbol of American battlefield strength. It safeguarded landing troops from ambush. It tore apart bunkers with armor-piercing rounds. It pinned down enemies so tanks and flamethrowers could finish the fight. It turned defensive battles into easy victories and offensive operations into unstoppable momentum. The weapon didn't just win fights, it shaped the outcome of campaigns. By late 1944, Japanese soldiers began capturing damaged M1919s when possible, attempting desperately to reverse engineer them. But the technology difference could no longer be bridged. America's industry, firepower, and logistics were overwhelming the empire on all fronts. For the first time, Japanese troops grasped that bravery alone could not overcome superior firepower. The M1919 taught them a harsh truth of modern warfare. If your weapons cannot match your enemy, then your courage becomes a sacrifice, not a strategy. And yet, this story was only beginning, because the Browning M1919 was about to demonstrate its most important role, how its firepower helped the United States take the final steps toward victory, and forced Japan into a desperate defensive war that they could not possibly win. The final phase of the Pacific War changed everything. Japan was no longer expanding. They were defending inch by inch against an enemy that possessed superior technology, overwhelming supplies, and unstoppable firepower. And at the center of this shifting tide, the Browning M1919 continued to reshape the battlefield. By 1945, Japanese soldiers had learned to listen for the sound of this weapon. That harsh, rapid clatter meant one thing: death was coming fast. Many veterans described the chilling moment when the M1919 opened fire, how the air itself seemed to tear apart as bullets flew so fast that they blurred into a single, continuous scream. Every beach landing, Peleliu, Leyte, Okinawa, saw the M1919 mounted on landing craft, firing even before Marines stepped onto the sand. The first seconds of battle were often the deadliest, and the M1919 ensured they belonged to America. The Japanese Navy's island garrisons were forced deeper underground, turning volcanic terrain into fortress networks. But even inside caves and tunnels, they could not escape. The M1919's armor-piercing ammunition punched through rock and timber defenses, forcing defenders to hide rather than fight. Their Type 92 machine gun, once considered a pride of the Imperial Army, could not match the Browning's efficiency. Its slow rate of fire meant Japanese troops could only fire short, timed bursts, while American gunners unleashed long belts that tore through obstacles like they were paper. There was one more fatal weakness. The Type 92 used feed strips, rigid metal pieces that held only 30 rounds. After every strip, the gun team had to reload. In a firefight, those seconds were lethal. Meanwhile, the M1919 simply devoured belts of 250 rounds or more. That difference, seconds versus minutes of continuous fire, changed everything. On the slopes of Mount Suribachi, Japanese soldiers tried to mount counterattacks in nighttime chaos. They hoped close-quarters engagements would minimize American firepower. But U.S. Marines carried M1919s right into the tunnels. Even on the move, the Browning delivered brutal suppression, filling dark caves with sparks as bullets ricocheted through confined spaces. Japanese military reports became increasingly desperate. They described American machine gun fire as unceasing, unbreakable, and impossible to silence. The fear wasn't only physical, it was psychological. Japanese troops soon realized, no matter how fast they moved, the M1919 was faster. No matter how brave they charged, the M1919 was waiting. The weapon changed American tactics too. With such fire dominance, infantry squads became more aggressive. The Browning gunner was now the backbone of every unit, capable of turning a small patrol into a lethal fighting force. When tanks advanced, the M1919 covered infantry from snipers. When infantry advanced, the M1919 pinned enemies inside bunkers. When planes strafed overhead, the M1919 secured the ground below. The Type 92 still appeared in the field, massive, unwieldy, and outdated, a relic of old doctrine. Its once terrifying presence was now a sign of desperation. As the war neared its final stages, Americans even mounted the M1919 on jeeps, landing craft, patrol boats, and armored vehicles. The firepower that once belonged to fortress walls was now mobile, fast, and everywhere. Japan's ammunition supplies dwindled. Their logistics collapsed, and the Type 92 became nearly silent on the battlefield, while the M1919 only grew louder. By the summer of 1945, victory was no longer a question of if, but when. On Okinawa, Japanese defenders made their final stand in one of the bloodiest battles in the Pacific. The M1919 was there every second, hammering caves, cutting down counterattacks, and guarding Marines climbing razor-sharp cliffs under fire. Survivors later said, "We were fighting the machine gun that never sleeps." And they were right. The Browning M1919 did not rest, did not hesitate, and did not allow the enemy a moment of peace. If the Japanese Type 92 was a woodpecker tapping at a tree, the M1919 was a thunderstorm ripping the sky apart. This machine gun earned its place in the history books, not through size or complexity, but through reliability and adaptability. It served on the front line of freedom from the first clash in the Solomon Islands to the final breath of war in Okinawa. When the guns finally fell silent in August 1945, one truth remained clear. Firepower plays a defining role in victory. The Japanese soldiers who once charged fearlessly with bayonets learned a difficult lesson: that courage alone could not overcome a weapon that embodied the industrial might of the United States. The Browning M1919 symbolized a new age of warfare, where mobility beats tradition, where speed beats strength, where technology beats bravery. After the war, the M1919 continued to serve around the world, in Korea, in Vietnam, and in dozens of conflicts across the globe. It became a blueprint for future American machine guns. Rugged, reliable, and relentlessly effective. But its greatest legacy was forged in the Pacific, where it shattered the myth of Japanese invincibility and helped pave the way to the ultimate Allied victory. In the end, the M1919 did not just win battles. It destroyed enemy morale. It crushed outdated tactics. It proved that the future belonged to those who mastered firepower. And for the Japanese soldiers who faced it, the memory of that terrifying sound never faded. A reminder that sometimes history changes not with generals or strategies, but with the unstoppable rhythm of a gun that refused to quit